I remember being in Patterson, New Jersey. I helped found the friary.
Okay.
And so we're wandering in this neighborhood that's like ground zero for meth at that time, like the movement corridor up into the Northeast. So it's like lots of violence, lots of horrible things going on, lots of dealers and pretty big gang wars that were part of that area. And we're just like wandering around, you know, like here I am, you know, like bearded white dude in the neighborhood. And like somebody coming up is like, hey man, I don't know what you're up to, bro, but this ain't a neighborhood you should be in. And I was like, we live here. We just moved in. So,
hey neighbor,
how you doing? You know, howdy. But after a little bit, like of walking in that neighborhood, at first there was like, you know, I remember there were some people that were sitting on their stoops and they're like, what are you doing here? You know, and you just kind of talk to them again in a way that people are able to receive, begin to proclaim.
Were you afraid at the beginning walking through places like that?
I've only been afraid once in my life as a friar, and it was never in any place in the U.S. It was in a prison in Nicaragua where I was a missionary.
We got to go there now.
We got to go.
What happened?
So I'm there and we're prison chaplains. And this prison is built for roughly 900 inmates, and there's about 3,000 that are in it.
Oh my.
And it looks much more, it's a horrible situation. And pray for Nicaraguan, especially for Bishop Rolando Alvarez, who's in prison, condemned for 28 years, a bishop there, for standing up for the faith.
Against who? The communists?
The government that's there in power. So...
was he given an option to recant, to leave? How did that?
He could have left the country, but he said, I'm not going to leave my flock.
Wow.
And even if
so is Catholicism now illegal in Nicaragua?
It is not entirely illegal. What's illegal is to speak against the government in any way. Uh-huh. And the church was one of those voices there that was speaking out against things that were happening, injustices, etc.
Okay.
And so because he was unwilling to be silent in the face of injustice, they arrested him. There was other priests that were exiled as a result of that. So like the prisons down there are not, nobody wants to go to prison there, period. In this prison where we were chaplains, wasn't where he went to a political prison, but the one we went to.
So you were saying is made for 900 and there's about 3,000 inmates.
Yeah.
So what does each cell look like?
There aren't cells. It's like, it looks more like what I would expect, like Auschwitz or something. Meaning like barracks that are just stacked like, cordwood. You got people on like 3 high, just shoved in, and there's like a tiny corridor in the center where you can walk. There's nothing growing inside there, no trees. It's just like dirt and kind of little tufts of brown grass.
Oh my gosh.
And, and a lot of violence, a lot of, it's a rough place. And we were chaplains there.
Okay. I'm sorry. This story is too good. I need you to slow down. So you went to Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And then tell us about the first time you were told that this is what you'd be doing and what it was like stepping foot in there.
So I was in my temporary vows, and I was told, you're going to go with our priest who's going to celebrate Mass. Uh-huh. And then eventually you're going to take over as being kind of the chaplain who's doing catechesis and working with guys inside the prison, including
what's internal security like there?
Well, this is what was kind of a little bit disconcerting to me is you go in and the guards, and to be honest, it's like a lot of the guards are just people that have jobs and they work there and that's their thing. But we go in and they walk with you and take you through these different lock gates, and they're closing them behind you. And then there's a large room that's just open. It's got like burn marks or smoke on the walls. It's a corrugated roof that's made out of, what's that stuff that's illegal that'll give you cancer? Asbestos. There we go. So asbestos, like old school asbestos that have holes that are pocked in it. So little beads of light. There's no light in there, except for some windows that are high up on the wall that are like with the great, the metal bars. And we're there to celebrate Mass with the people that are in there. And there's just all these different people in there. We go in and I'm like looking around and like a lot of shady looking characters. And the prison guards walk us in there. We come in, and then he just like closes the thing behind me, locks it, and just walks away. And I'm just like,
okay.
All right.
No guidance, no suggestions.
Yeah, and no security.
I'm
just in this room with like 150 prisoners, many of whom are there for like, taking human life, literally, without any judgment, just facts, And some of them are looking like I would love to just like skin you alive right now kind of vibes. And so I'm trying to
be... you and somebody else? Or?
There's a priest who's there as well.
Yeah, you and the priest.
Yeah, so I believe it was Father Albert. And so we're there. And he starts setting up for Mass, and he was like, help out with this. And he was like, okay, and I just want you to sit with the people and try and, invite people to participate by participating, doing responses and things like that. And they had a group of guys who were doing music, which was awesome. They had guitarrón and a guitarra, and it was like a little bit like a mariachi type of group that were doing music. They were prisoners. Mm-hmm. But then there's like a group of guys that are there. And I remember like I walked back and they're lining the wall and they're just like all tatted to pieces, So it was like definitely gang related guys. And I tried to be like a cheery boy from Georgia who's like, hey, how you doing? It's going like, how y'all, come on, we're doing Mass. This is going to be awesome. And saying all this in Spanish, And one of the guys just all of a sudden just like looks at me and just like death in his eyes and just like cranks up his middle fingers and give me 2 middle fingers, just like, and then he just goes, and I'm just like, and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh my God. And it was like, I was like, oh man, like this dude doesn't care about anything and could very well like kill me right now. It was a moment of just like, so I just turned around. I was like, está bien, it's like, we could just keep walking. And went back and got closer to the altar and was there for the rest of Mass. And like nothing happened in that moment with this, but it was like,
could have.
And this guy was like this type of situation where it's like he had nothing to lose if he did something to me. Yeah. He's already in prison, multiple sentences, people go into prison there and sometimes they just never come out. But one of the neat things about that same sort of scenario is flash forward like 6 months later, and working with some of the men in the prison, we were able to do this retreat. And there was these guys that went to confession for the first time in years. And these guys that received communion for the first time in years. And you could just see the joy and the light in their eyes of being able to find that even in that place, like Christ was there and he was there for them and he wasn't there to condemn, but to save. Mm-hmm. And like the grace of redemption, the power of Christ. And there was fires lit in their hearts that even though I left and came back almost 7 years after that, those same men were leaders in the prison, evangelizing, set on fire inside this real, like just dark situation, right? And for me, I love it because it's like, all right, there is absolutely nothing externally that can explain what's happening here in these men's lives. Because like everything around them, the culture of their life, it's like the joy that they had, the peace and this love and desire to share the gospel inside the prison. It was just like, whoa, man. It's just like a joy to see the truth of the gospel manifest in such a concrete way.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like, and subscribe.